How does Qatar's culture influence positive leadership practices?
So one of the aspects of positive leadership is something called positive relationships. And in positive relationships, we look at from the perspective of respectful engagement, trust, play, and what they call task enabling or performance enabling. So, when studying Qatari leaders, it was very clear that the respectful engagement is a very high value for Qatari leaders and a very cultural value that gets translated into the way they interact with people in their work, at least the exceptional leaders. They really esteem and find very important to greet everybody, to connect with everybody, to have that very respectful interaction, and that there is a harmony, at least at a surface level, that is preserved and maintained throughout their interactions with their team. That was probably the strongest of the points that came up in the study. Another one was the performance enabling in terms of resourcing the staff. And so that focus on making sure that people have what they need in order to perform well the work that they are doing. Things that didn't show up as strongly were around play, that social aspect of interaction with people on the teams. And then the trust was something that it was there from a transactional point of view, but not as deep on the relational point of view. So those were very interesting aspects. Another that I found fascinating was a propensity to optimism, to really believe that good things are happening. So to define optimism, when we come to studying optimism, we're looking at how much does that person or that organization believes that things are going to actually work out. The things that they are very hopeful for the future. And so it's not necessarily a blind optimism of let me just put a veneer of positivity and think that everything is going to be okay, or just close my eyes to maybe any problems. No, it's an approach to problem solving that comes from the perspective of we're going to figure it out, and we're going to rally whatever we need to rally in terms of resources and support in order to solve this problem. So a very optimistic approach to doing business. That was very, very clear. Another thing that came up that was quite remarkable, and I'm not sure it was part of what I was looking for, but it was a strong sense of. So one of the things that in positive leadership that we look for is a sense of meaning, that the people have a very clear sense of meaning, that they are part of something bigger than themselves. And for Qatari leaders, that was very, very clear that their greatest motivator, their greatest sense of value came from their loyalty to Qatar as a country. And so that sense of what I do in my small sphere, or whatever sphere that is, has an impact in Qatar's reputation as a nation. And so it was fascinating to see how that was the strongest sense of mattering and value that these leaders experience. When I asked the question, like, how do you know that you matter? Most of them mention stories around impacting the country and around the country's reputation benefiting from the work that they do. And that was a very, very interesting finding, and speaks to that national unity and rallying around one vision that the country has so I thought that was pretty remarkable. Other aspects, there were some differences in gender, for example, when it comes to learning from their own experiences and bringing in some of that learning. And I wonder if the gender dynamics have to do with, in the workplace, have to do with some of discrepancies that I saw in the data, where men seem to be much more comfortable to really analyze and learn from their failures, where women didn't show that as strongly in the data. So there were several different very encouraging traits that the Qatar culture and heritage brings into leadership that actually are very strongly correlated with positive leadership.
Thank you very much indeed. And I must say that Myself, I have experienced many of those traits that you just listed and mentioned, especially after being away from Qatar for the last 30 years, living in Canada. And when I returned, it blew my mind. Like you called it, very remarkable. Thank you very much for your input.